And hello, it is Monday morning. I hope everyone is having a lovely, lovely day. We are going to be responding to a Wild Hunt article on the importance of connection. Magic has emigrated itself quite well into the digital environment, but we still need to have the physical bonds with each other, especially in ritual. So, without further ado, fruity language from the outset, viewer discretion is advised. We will be talking about touchy subjects. So, if you get easily offended, well, I'm doing my job, I guess. Before I continue, please help support satanic content creators. You can check us out at TSTV, that is the Satanic Temple.tv. All right, let's do this. Ecum- Ecumenical culture, the importance of in person connection. So, we welcome today's contribution from Seth Salem, an occultist and sorcerer based in the southwest of England, and a member and friend to several magical orders. He is co-founder of the ritual group Societas Astris and director of the Visible College, a not-for-profit organization hosting events in the UK. You can learn more about the events he facilitates at the thelemicsymposium.co.uk and the occultconference.co.uk. So definitely go and check those out. So when people think of the occult, they think that they allow their imaginations to run wild, right? They picture the occult as a darker avenue of magic where it's full of the wonders and the mysteries. And the occult comes with its own labels, which it hasn't really deserved. It is a practical school of magic. And everything in magic, really, you could argue, is occult in nature. We draw from the divine, right? We from the void. We are magicians. It's what we do. But the importance here is how we should remain in connection with each other. So, what are we to do when the signal of occult and pagan discourse is lost in the noise of the digital age? With the rise of echo chambers, outrage manufacturing polemists, and bad faith actors pushing messages of division and discord, I suggest we consider the value of in person connection to maintain our community and bonds in a trying time. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the International Thelemic Symposium, a UK event running since 1986 in Oxford, and it stands as a testament to the power of in person events to bring people together from varied and frequently combative strands of occultism and paganism. All right, so we're going to check out this video. So let's do this. Hopefully you guys can hear this. I'm not sure if it's going to show anything, but there we go. It's the 40th year celebration. So let's talk about Thelma. For those not familiar with Thelma, it is a philosophy and or a religion developed by Aleister Crowley after his received text Liber Alver Legis, or the Book of the Law, written in 1904. At its core, it is a system grounded in the individual finding and pursuing their will, which could be described as a way of going in accordance with the universe. Utopian and non-discriminatory, the text includes such verses as every man and every woman is a star, which is correct. We are all a star. We are made up of the same fact building blocks of the universe. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and love is the law, love unto will. There is a lot to unpack with Aleister Crowley, especially his actions within the occult circles, right? He was an individual that pretty much was self taught. He studied the occult extensively. He imagined himself as the reincarnation of Thoth. He also joined the Hermeticals of the Golden Dawn and never made it past the neophyte level. In fact, he was removed from the order after he started stealing or getting access and borrowing texts that he had no right to do. He also stole what would become known as the Thoth Tarot deck to create his own idea of the Golden Dawn's deck. So there is a lot to Crowley. Was he right? Would be the questions. Well, when we look at what he says, every man and woman is a star. He has a very point. Every man and woman is a star. And as long as we don't harm anyone, do what you will. If you want to be an occultist, be an occultist. If you want to be a witch, be a witch. If you want to be a Satanist, be a Satanist. We talked about Satanism yesterday. And what Crowley suggested is a view of life where we should be free to do what we want to do as long as we're not harming any. Now, people could argue, legitimately argue, that Crowley stole that from the Wiccan Read. And you might actually be correct, but he rewrote it in a way that didn't exactly look like he stole it. I mean, did he? I think that's one of the big theological questions of just how much did he steal. This doesn't discredit Thelma at all. Crowley was just the founder. Thelma has grown exponentially over the decades, right? It's become an established system. It's become more than what Crowley had in mind as far as an occult practice. Crowley expanded upon the text in commentary and supplementary works and wove it into other received texts into the occult orders he managed, such as Ordo Templi Orientis and the AA. Like, we would, when we look at received texts, it raises another question. Did Crowley steal or did he merely take from other texts? It's one of those open-ended questions because there is no hard and fast answer without pissing off Thelemites. Following his death, Thelma had many claimant groups and offshoots, influencing traditions including Wicca, English Kabbalah, and the Illuminatis of Thanatarius. And to this day, there are many different factions seeking to promote their perspective on the works of Crowley and those who followed him within the current. I would say that Wicca was already established. I mean, the two are connected, would be one way to look at it. But I would argue that witchcraft was established long before Crowley came up with Thelma. I mean, you only have to look at history to get that. And to sort of say that Crowley inspired British Wicca, I think Crowley would look at Wicca and he would see that it has its issues and he would target those. Thelma is completely different. Thelma is not Wicca. It's true, it's nature-based, and true, that is what Crowley believed in, nature-based ceremonial magic. But I think Wicca is its own personal beast, to be perfectly honest. And this idea that Crowley has been credited with establishing religious orders, I think the only order he really did establish was OTI. And I think everything just grew out after his death. All right, let's go on. That is why on October the 11th, 1986, something miraculous happened. All of these groups were invited to a 111th birthday party for Crowley in Oxford to celebrate not just the similarities, but also the differences of those who practiced, studied, or were interested in Thelma. Hosted by the Oxford Golden Dawn Occult Society and spearheaded by Mog Morgan, author and owner of the Mandrake of Oxford Publishing. The event brought a huge number of Thelemites together. And in that space and the events that followed, an admixture of now famous occultists met and spoke and made friends across sectarian boundaries. Jake Stratton Kent, David Rankin, Genesis P. Orridge, Julian Vane, Lionel Snell, Mike McGee, Ray Sherwin, Fraser Udi, Michael Stanley, and many more were participants in the early years when attendees swapped phone numbers and addresses in the pre-internet age. There's a picture of Crowley there. All right. I myself had my start at conference events in the UK. First meetups and moots for Worker UK, the Awakening Conference in Manchester in 2005, and then going to events such as the Grimoire Gathering in Clun, the Pleasure Dome in Brighton, and the Glastonbury Occult Conference from 2011. The accessibility of learning and meeting authors and speakers both within and without formal orders amazed me. And in 2013, I took on a Glastonbury event, running it from 2014 to 2018, then stepping back in to help the committee from 2023 alongside my work to facilitate a reimagined Thelmic Symposium for the 2024 alongside Bob Morgan. I've been lucky enough to speak at Pagan Federation events, Pandemonium, and even the Occulture Retreat, all through connections I made in person by attending and participating and engaging with others. I think, see, this is why Thelma is controversial, is people only have a negative viewpoint of Aleister Crowley. And because of that negative viewpoint, and because of everything that Crowley did during his lifetime, people naturally assign these labels to Thelma without realizing that the order and the collective school of Thelma has changed exponentially. They still follow the teachings, don't get me wrong, but it's been heavily modernized. It's been heavily kind of adjusted to be more inclusive. All right, let's continue. I feel incredibly privileged to have grown up and come of age in the pagan and occult scene in Manchester. Now, is there a difference between pagan and occult? There is a difference. Just saying. Because it had a huge variety of practitioners from all parts and traditions. You could walk into a moot and meet members of the OTO, IoT, and Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, practitioners of Santeria and traditional witchcraft, and a panoply of eclectic witches and magicians who had their own relationships with spirits and deities too numerous to attempt to describe. If you had a question, it could be answered. And if you wanted an argument, it was always available. However, you would have to argue with respect and justify your position because that's how face-to-face discourse works. This is true. When we meet in person and let's say the best arguments, especially in schools of magic, are where you're both wrong. Because by labeling it in certain ways, you're both right and wrong at the same time. But the idea of discourse is not to just stick with one side, but to meet in the middle, to be neutral, to understand both sides of one coin. One coin looks at life in a certain way. The other side of the coin looks at life in a different way. But in 2026, we tend to argue without listening. Society is reactionary. It's, the second something happens, or the second there's a political news, or the second there's a new social media trend, we react with a knee-jerk reaction. I think the current generation, and it is shown that the current generation doesn't really have the ability to have logical arguments, to be able to say, this is my point of view, without all the swearing and insults and flaming and trolling and all of that, right? And I think the current generation really don't know how to debate properly. They know how to argue, but they don't ever want to see on neutral ground. It's either their way or it's the highway. And it shows. It really does. All right. In the 25 years since, I'm sure many of us will have seen the disintegration of that polite discourse through the medium of the internet and social media. Everything is outrage. Everything is bait. Nearly everything is AI generated. This is true. The internet, I've been on the internet a very long time. Part of the pitfall of the internet is people can hide behind anonymity, right? They can create personas and they have this false sense of security that will tell them you can post whatever the hell you want to post and nobody will ever find you. Which is why there is so much of the outrage culture, especially online, because people post things in the heat of the moment without clearly thinking things through. Instead of having a proper discussion with somebody, people reach for the block button, or they suddenly post memes about you, or they suddenly get all their friends to mess with you, or whatever the situation is. And it's one of the biggest pitfalls of the internet because people hide behind these personas. When I was growing up, we did things in person. We had discourse. We had roundtable discussions. You had an issue with somebody, you sit down, you talk it out. But you sure as hell don't start flaming and sort of insults online and all of that. The internet has given people that freedom to be whoever the hell they want to be and to post whatever the hell they want to post without any consequences. That's one of the biggest pitfalls of the online world. And it is affecting pagan culture. It is affecting the occult. It is affecting the world's religions because people post a one directional argument and then just watch the outrage flare up, right? They take a seat and they're like, oh my gosh, look at all these replies to my post, right? And they revel in that. They're not thinking, but what if somebody comes forward and actually debates me, because they don't want to debate. Why? Because they don't know how to debate. Discourse is not being taught in our schools here in the States. There's a variant of it, but it's not real discourse. It's a bit like, well, you have to be on this side, you have to be on this side, but we're going to ignore the neutral grounds in the middle because we do not want to enter into that neutral territory. So you're going to be graded on one particular point, but you're not going to be, and the other person's going to be graded on a different point. But you sure as hell aren't going to find any neutral grounds because that is what they believe debating should be, which is either and or. Not let's talk things through and have a legitimate one-on-one conversation about why you feel a certain way, what is driving you to feel this certain way, how you are reacting, how you're thinking, how's your day going, all of these factors. You know, schools and the internet, right, just don't care. That they're like instant outrage. And then we attack people using AI. And so now you can create an AI to post whatever the hell you want to post without any consequences. We've lost the ability, I think, as a current generation to really sit down and have lengthy discussions where both sides share their particular stance on something and both sides can have a legitimate conversation. And it shows because the current generation is a generation of online only, but never in person. They've never had that in-person interaction. And if they have, it's in a controlled environment or whatever the situation is. We need to, as a pagan community, break the cycle from the internet and do more things in person, right? Now, the internet is good for ritual, don't get me wrong. It's good for online orders, it's good for finding research, but we need to get back into having these discussions in person where we can see each other and understand each other's body movements, right? Why are you sort of doing this and looking all hostile, and let's talk it out, right? Without the aggression. We live in, as this article says, outrage. Everyone is outraged and they're baited into it. This article's right, they're baited into it. Look at how many people have sit when Trump, I mean, even before Trump was re-elected, it was Trump this, Trump that, Trump everything. And people are so outraged that they continue to post and post and post and post and post and post and post, and they never stop to think, what if my work finds out that I'm posting this on the internet? What if my family accidentally stumbles on my profile and sees all this BS that I've just posted? What about these memes that we quite freely share without ever thinking on it, right? We just think, oh, look, that's cute. That's a meme. Let's share it. Wait a second. What's behind this meme? We're driven by outrage. We're not driven by theological and classical and theosophical discussion or a desire to have these conversations. We're just driven by outrage. Everything is designed, especially online, to bait you, to make you feel angry, to make you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to post something about Trump. It's been 5 minutes. Come on, we got to post, we got to post, we got to post. I'm just saying. Oh boy. All right, let's continue. Even when you find a good Facebook group or subreddit, there are bots and brigading and those with the loudest voices shouting down calm, respectful opinions. There is too much noise for the signals to break through. And while I'm an advocate of technology in general, social media is no longer doing more good than harm. Social media originally, if you were to go back in time, before social media was a thing, people would post on forums, but they were still doing it using personas. When social media was first invented, it was designed for a way that families across great distances can keep in contact. Or you can find people online with similar interests, legal interests. So social media took a while to develop, but when it flourished, people turned to it thinking, hey, now I can post anonymously without any consequences. Social media has become a tool of great harm. We see it with our young, where kids are under an incredible amount of pressure. In fact, not just kids, young adults are also under a tremendous amount of stress, having to keep up with what the Joneses are doing on social media. Hey, look, this hairstyle is in. Hey, look, this makeup is in. I've got to keep up with the trends. It's become an addiction, and we have done it to ourselves, right? We are all addicted to some point to social media because we need that connection, without realizing that the best way to connect with people is in person. All right, let's carry on. From that first event in 2005, I could see the importance of being able to meet individuals from all paths and share practice and challenge worldviews, mine included. And I've learned and developed astronomically through this simple human-to-human connection. This is what we need in magic. Magic is great. It's wonderful. But we need to remember what it's like to be in person, to have theological and theosophical discussions in person, to debate, to question, to try and understand. You want to break the stigma of Satanism? Brilliant. Meet with the Satanists. Get to know them. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to do it in person because you can't really... The anonymous online personas which people create are just that. You need to do it in person. You need to be able to see the people that you're talking about. We're not built to live in tiny boxes staring at glass screens, true, and buying into the disgust and outrage of others, true. Say what you want about Trump, but I have never, in my entire years of being on the internet, the early internet, I have never seen somebody's name posted every single, within like the space of 2 minutes. The internet is alive, or social media aspect of the internet is alive, with Trump posts literally everywhere. It's clouded the entire social media scene, and it's creating a social media like global condemnation and outrage. But this is what people strive on. They're like, well, it's been 5 minutes, got to post about Trump, I'll just post this meme. Right? It really is. It's insanity, right? We're built to connect with people, true. Understand each other and find common ground, true. That's what humanity is. To connect, to be able to look at somebody eye to eye and see what the hell is going on in their mind. This is why I've spent over a decade organizing, facilitating, and hosting in-person events, supporting others with lectures, workshops, and rituals, and trying to attend as many as possible. Yeah. People are wonderful. People are strange. People are mysterious. But we need to remember how to connect, how to shake somebody's hand, how to look eye to eye, how to listen, how to critically think, how to just be human and come off social media for 5 or 10 minutes, right? I believe in finding the others. I believe in the wonder of people and the magic inherent in every human being and the opportunity to become something miraculous. It's only possible to see that, to connect to that, and lift each other up when we organize ourselves into networks. And that is becoming almost impossible online. True, it is almost impossible. I would say it's not almost impossible, it's impossible. You can't do it online. It has to be in person. There is fantastic work being undertaken to make in-person events accessible online. I mean, yeah, with Zoom, but is it real connection? Zoom is great. Zoom is wonderful, right? But is it real human connection? That's the question. And the technology that allows wholly online conferences to take place is a boon for those unable to attend. But we still need to meet others on an interpersonal level on the physical plane. True. The Thelmic community is not the only path in a culture and paganism which could benefit from some ecumenical interaction, I'm sure. But seeing those from all different strands of my tradition come together, meet each other, and realize that we have so much to share with each other is pure magic, a true and honest experience of meeting those across the spectrum of practice and teachings who might have come from different places or views, but all end up together and share in an event to learn, to speak, to participate, and to celebrate. This article's got a very valid point. We need to remember what it's like to communicate. We need to remember what it's like to just be with people, to understand what it is they're going through. So there we go. You can check out the rest of the article on The Wild Hunt. Before I go, please help support Witchcraft TV, show Harold Carter some love. Also, please help support satanic content creators. You can check us out at thesatanictemple.tv. That's all I have time for. I'll be back with more very soon. Till next time. Blessings.